Okay, it's about 7 o'clock, so I guess we will get started. Welcome to the Q&A session for the Global Youth Leadership Conference. Before we begin with questions, since this is primarily going to be about your questions and everything like that, I'll give you some technical information for this whole experience that we're about to have, and I'll also introduce myself and explain my experience with Envision Leadership. So if you all would like to ask questions, as some of you guys have figured out, you have to have a Google account and be logged in. So make sure you do that, log into your Google account so I can answer your questions and you can get the most out of this experience. So we'll get started. My name is Mari Henderson. I am an Envision Experience alumni, and I just finished up my freshman year at George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. I was a part of their honors college, and so luckily I'll actually be able to start my junior year in the fall. I'm majoring in global affairs with a concentration in media, communication, and culture, and I am minoring in history. On campus, aside from education and classes, I'm involved in Mason Ambassadors, which is a group that essentially leads tours for prospective students on campus. I'm also part of the Relay for Life committee, and I help plan that event to raise money for cancer patients and survivors. And I'm also involved in Roosevelt Institute, which is a public policy think tank, and we submit our policies to the Virginia State Senate as well as sometimes the National Senate. And I also have a job this summer with George Mason University leading orientations for incoming freshmen and transfer students. Also during this year, I had an internship on Capitol Hill for about 8 months with Congressman Fred Upton. He's from Michigan in the 6th District, and he is the chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee. So that's a little bit about me. About 2 years ago, in July of 2013, I had the opportunity to attend the Global Youth Leadership Conference in Europe. Because of that, I got to go to Vienna, Austria, Prague, Czech Republic, and Berlin, Germany. And since I attended the cultural add-on as well, I also visited Munich and Leipzig, Germany, as well as Salzburg, Austria, which is actually where they shot The Sound of Music. So that's a fun little fact for you. That entire experience completely changed my life. I had been involved with Envision for a few years before that. I'd gone to 5 or 6 conferences before that. So I was very much involved with that entire organization. And this was kind of my last hurrah because I was aging out of the program. And it was a beautiful way to end my whole experience with Envision. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my time in Europe. Being a huge history nerd, I really loved walking through the streets of Berlin and things like that because it felt like I was walking where this history happened, which was huge for me, especially when I went to the Berlin Wall, because my parents were actually stationed as military personnel in Germany, in Berlin, when the wall fell in 1989. So their experiences and their stories from that is really where I started my passion for history. So it felt really, really awesome to be right there next to where that all happened. We also got to go to, with the cultural add-on, we got to go to Zugspitze, which is the tallest mountain in Germany. And that was just a really fun experience. We got to climb some of the way, got to ride up in one of the little elevator cart things. And it was gorgeous, and they had sledding, and I come from the north, so I go sledding a lot, and some of my friends who were from other parts of the world didn't exactly know how to do that, so I got to kind of teach them how to do that, and it was really fun to experience that with them. Also, on the last day of the conference, our keynote speaker was Dr. Muhammad Mesic. He is Bosnian. He's only 29 years old, but speaks 74 languages. And that was really interesting to me because I love languages and different cultures and things like that. And he was incredibly inspirational. And he talked a lot about following your dreams, which really I felt like set the tone for a lot of the conference, since even though that it cost money to go on this conference and things like that, a lot of people there had really big plans and they knew what they wanted to do and they had these great goals, and I was very honored to be surrounded by them. And the people that I was surrounded by really made the experience even better for me. My small group that I was placed in at the very beginning of the conference was absolutely fantastic. And in fact, they made the trip for me. Not only did I learn a lot from their different experiences in their culture and what they've done throughout their entire life with their different types of schooling and learning and what they thought about certain issues and things like that, I also met some of the best friends that I've ever had. I know a couple of people from my small group who still go and visit each other in South Africa. One of the people who I met, who is from China, actually came to visit me this year while I was at college. And another one of the girls who was in my small group also went to a university about 20 minutes away from me. So we'd meet up and have lunch and talk about, politics or photography or anything really that we talked about from the trip. So that was also really exciting. The people that I met along the way were truly the best part of the entire trip for me. And I don't know if that was just for me because I really liked being around people, or anything other reason than that. And I know that was a really brief introduction. So feel free to ask me some questions in the question box. I will try to keep coming up with stories to tell you while I'm waiting on some questions. I do not remember the costs. I had a question from Carrie Ramirez, but we do have an Envision faculty member on this call, so maybe she'll be able to answer that question a little bit more for you. I think it depends on which location you choose, though. So Europe costs different than the China costs and everything like that. Ms. Parthy, the Envision faculty member that I was talking about, just answered, and she said tuition for GYLC in Europe is $4,195, and it includes housing, conference materials, 2 meals per day, and transportation during the program. But transportation to and from the program is not included in the tuition, so you just have to pay for that. If you guys are curious, a little more curious about my specific experience on Envision's website, if you, I am under one of the alumni profiles and I made a little video. It's about 15 minutes long, so it's probably just easier to ask me here. You can feel free to watch that. I'm sorry if you hear a dog barking in the background. I'm at home, and I'm not paying attention to them, so they get a little angsty. Feel free to watch my video, though. If you type in, just in Google, if you type in Mari Henderson with Envision, that will also give you an answer. Sorry about the dog. So one of the really cool things that we got to do for the leadership conference, since there were lots of different groups there, obviously a lot of people took advantage of this whole trip. We got to split up and go to different organizations while we were in Vienna. One group went to the United Nations office that they had in Vienna and got to talk to them there. My group actually got to go to the Office for Security and Cooperation in Europe, or the OSCE, which has been in the news a lot lately. They're part of election monitoring and things like that. That's basically what they do, and they are a very peace-loving organization. They try to make decisions with 100% approval from all nations involved, which is really interesting. And it doesn't just take place in Europe. The United States is a part of it. They even have countries like North Korea who are probationary members, and they don't get to vote on things, and they're not really involved in the election monitoring and how things affect them, but they get to watch and kind of see and potentially learn from the decisions that are being made there. We also have another answer in case you're interested in GYLC in China. That is $3,995 for tuition, and the United States program is $2,995. And those also include conference materials, housing, and 2 meals per day for that. So yes, we got to go to the OSCE. That was a really interesting experience because we got to actually talk to a member of the, like one of the people who helps run the organization, and ask him questions about, you know, global affairs, which is my major. So I was very interested, and that was very interesting. And I got to talk to him. I actually asked him a question about Edward Snowden because that was a really big thing at the time. And it was very surreal being with somebody whose job I would actually really enjoy maybe in the future. So, we have another question. It is, what do I bring? And what was your favorite thing that you saw in Austria, Prague, and Berlin? So what you're going to want to bring for the conferences, there's actually a list on Envision's website of the recommended things that you should bring, but you should definitely bring business professional clothing. So, you know, blazers, dresses, nice pants, nice skirts, things like that, if that's what you want to wear. If you're a gentleman, you should bring suits, nice pants, ties, bow ties, whatever your preferred neckwear is. And you should also bring a camera. I really like photography, so I, of course, brought my camera, took tons of pictures. I have like 900 pictures on Facebook from the whole trip. And if you have, if you would like to, like, you're walking around outside a lot, so if you want, you can bring sunscreen. It was kind of rainy while I was there, so it wasn't really a problem, but just simple things like that. Appropriate footwear is very important since you're walking around a lot, so as much as, like, if you really like wearing heels, girls, then, you know, you probably shouldn't wear them on days that you're going into the cities and doing tours and stuff like that. As far as my favorite thing that I saw, in Austria, we actually went to a performance by 2 opera singers, which was very interesting because Austria is home to a lot of really great classical music, and I was always involved in music in high school, and so I actually knew some of the songs that they were singing, and it was absolutely beautiful. In Prague, basically the entire city of Prague was my favorite thing in Prague. But specifically, we went to this one area of Prague, and it was called the John Lennon Wall. And what basically you do on the John Lennon Wall is there's just this wall, and it's just covered in graffiti. And you can go up there, and you can write whatever you want. If you don't bring spray paint with you, because you're not allowed to take that on planes, but if you lived in Prague and you had spray paint, you could go and you could add your signature to the wall. There were so many people who were like calling for peace, or like signed their name, or, you know, just drew a beautiful mural on the wall or anything like, and it was so gorgeous, and it really showed a lot of cultures coming together. So that was my favorite part of Prague, probably. And then in Berlin, my favorite thing was definitely the Berlin Wall. With my family being there when it fell, I had heard a lot of stories, and I had heard, I'd done a lot of reading and research on it throughout my time in high school, and that was so, it was just kind of, it didn't feel real to me because I was there, you know, I was where all of this history took place, and it was so exciting. So my next question is, what was your major concern before going? And I was honestly very concerned about, making friends. I am sometimes very loud, and I like to make my opinions and things known. And so I was kind of concerned that that would be an issue with people because of different cultures and things like that. But in all actuality, the people there were so welcoming, and a lot of people were very similar to Iowa. to me, and I was able to not only communicate effectively with people from different cultures, but also become very good friends with them, and B, learn how to communicate more effectively with people from different cultures. A lot of the curriculum is mostly based on cross-cultural leadership, which is something that we really, really need. So that was probably the biggest one. Hang on, let me mark the questions that I answered. Done with that one. And then, so the next question is, how should I prepare for this event? You should prepare for this event by becoming familiar with where you're going. It's not something that a lot of people really think about, but if you are going to China, you can look into Chinese customs, look at pictures of which cities you're going to go to. Before I went to Europe, I looked at a bunch of different pictures from the different places that were on our itinerary. I made them my background on my computer. I started trying to learn basics of the language, even though that wasn't 100% necessary. But it was really interesting to me, and it really helped me to kind of understand what was happening if we were to come across somebody who spoke German or something. I would be able to communicate with them just a little bit. Really, there's not any one thing that you need to do to prepare. Just be ready to go and keep an open mind. So I was asked to talk about sharing a room with someone that you didn't know. For a lot of people, that's a major issue because you're like, oh no, I snore, and maybe people won't like that, and that's okay, because my roommates along the way were actually very kind, and people have kind of prepared themselves. That's another thing I guess you should prepare for when you're going. Be prepared to live with someone that you're not, best friends with. But a lot of people have prepared themselves at this point. They know that they're going to be sharing a room with somebody that's different than they are. So it wasn't that hard for me personally. I have an older sister who I've lived with all my life, so I was kind of used to it. But also coming back to your room at night and or after a long day of events, you kind of get to talk to your roommate more about where they came from. Actually, one of my roommates, the roommate that I had for the longest, I had her as my roommate in 2 cities. She is from Trinidad and Tobago, and she actually had some stuff from home that she had brought, and she actually let me try some of the food that she brought, and she told me to stay in contact with her, which I have, and if I ever wanted to go and visit her, she would be glad to have me. And so it's really not that scary. It's not as scary as it seems living with somebody that you don't know, because everybody there is very welcoming and accommodating and willing to learn from each other. Okay, so this is a really good question. What do I do for my cultural item? So I can see you're from the Caribbean, so there's definitely lots of things that you could bring. What they're insinuating is you are prompted to bring a cultural item when you come on your GYLC trip to kind of tell about your culture. It doesn't specifically have to be about your country, which is key for people from the United States, or if you're from the Caribbean, you have so many things. It doesn't have to be about your country in particular. It could just be about your particular culture. So, for example, I come from the Midwest, so I didn't bring anything with me because there's not a lot to do in the Midwest in the United States. So one of my biggest hobbies was doing musical theater. So what I did is I came with a song prepared, and I shared that song as my cultural item. So it can be something abstract like that, or you can bring something physical. For example, One of the girls in my small group was from Taiwan, and she brought us these little pineapple-like cake things, so like a little packaged food that was easy to transport, and we all loved it. And we had people from Canada bring little pins with the Canadian flag on them, or their province's flag, and we also had people bring keychains. It doesn't have to be the entire history of your country doesn't have to be answered by the singular cultural item. It can just be something that you like to do that's specific with your culture, or you can bring like the flag of your country and just talk a little bit about the history if you want to do that. It's really open to what you feel most comfortable talking about. Okay, let me see if there's any other. Okay. So this question, the experience that I had, I kind of went over a little bit earlier, but I can go through it a little bit again because luckily I wrote things down. So I got to go to GYLC Europe, in case you guys didn't get to hear that, and I went to Prague, Czech Republic, Berlin, Germany, and Austria, Vienna, Austria, sorry. And I also did the cultural add-on, which allowed me to go to Leipzig and Munich, Germany, as well as Salzburg, Austria. And I got to walk around the cities and learn different leadership styles and different leadership traits that a good leader should have in a global environment. And I think that's very important because you can talk as much as you want about a global leader in your home country or your home culture, but if you're not experiencing it with other cultures and kind of hearing what they think about it and hearing what different cultures see as what a leader is, you're not really getting the true global aspect of it. The main things that I had to bring: my camera, because I love taking pictures. I had to bring my all of your dress clothes that you need to go because you're meeting very important people. And you could also bring your cultural item, is very important. And just bring an open mind, I would say, is the next most important thing. It's up to you. You can bring sunscreen if you want. I didn't really need that. You can bring your own pillow if that makes you comfortable, like since you're not going to be at home. But definitely the most important thing to bring is an open mind and just be excited to be there because everybody else is. And if you're excited and they're excited, you guys are going to have a great time. Okay. Next question. Did I get to eat the country's traditional food? Yes. So as mentioned earlier, some part of the tuition for the program is getting 2 meals per day. And usually in the morning you get food, you get your breakfast at the hotel. And since your hotels are in these traditional countries, you get to try their traditional breakfasts. So when we were in the Czech Republic, they had it laid out buffet style, and they had eggs and things like that people would like. But they also had their own different types of meats and cheeses that they really liked, that Czech people usually ate for breakfast and things like that. And also, we went out for dinner while we were in Berlin, and we got, there were vegetarian options. I'm not vegetarian, so we got this basically half of a very small chicken to eat, done in German style, and we got to have apple strudel, but not like McDonald's apple strudel, like realistic apple strudel with very good frosting, and there were nuts in there and everything. And also, you also get to try whichever kind of authentic food you want when you're on your own buying some of your meals. You can buy them from food stands. We had tour guides who were from the nations that we were visiting, who pointed out different very good places to eat. So I went into one of those, and it was kind of like you grab whatever you want and you pay for however much you have. And it was a very German, and it was very delicious. So you definitely get to try lots of different foods as long as you go out and get it. Because you could go to McDonald's if you really wanted to, but that's not nearly as fun. So are the beds and pillows comfortable, or is the food good? The question is yes, the beds and pillows are comfortable. The thing that was actually most interesting to me is, another necessity that you're going to need is an adapter for the walls. If you want to bring your computer charger, your phone charger, things like that, they don't take the typical voltage adapters that we have in the United States. So if you just go to your local Radio Shack or anything like that, you can just say, hey, I'm going to Europe and I need an adapter for my chargers, and they'll be able to find you one and hand it to you. It's not that expensive at all. So that's different in the hotels, but also the beds and pillows are of different styles. They're a lot flatter, but they're still really comfortable. I personally brought my pillow from home because I'm very attached to my pillow, and I think it's really comfortable. But the pillows there, I surrounded myself with those pillows, and it was really comfortable. And the food is definitely very good. It's a very high quality of food. It's a lot healthier than the food that we have in the United States, actually. And I found myself, after I got off the plane, coming back into the United States, and I landed in Chicago, I just sniffed when I got off the plane, and there's just this waft of fast food, and I just was like, oh no, I miss all of this great food that I had when I was in Europe. So you don't have to worry about the food not being good, because it's fantastic. Okay, wow, we got through all those questions. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask. Got a few more minutes here. As I said earlier, in case some of you weren't on, I have a video that highlights my experiences on my trip, because I took video diaries while I was over there. It's about 15 minutes long, and if you just type in Mari Henderson, Envision Leadership, into Google, it'll probably pop up, or if you go onto Envision's website, I'm under the alumni, and then you can watch the video there, and I have lots of pictures from my trip if you're curious as to what things look like and things like that. So there's that extra information. Feel free to keep asking questions. I have lots of answers. So. Okay, so I could talk about a little bit about what the group meetings were like. So when you get there, you are assigned to LGMs, or leadership group meetings, and they are led by FAs, or faculty advisors, who are also from a global setting. So you don't really, that whole, it's all about global leadership. And so in the leadership group meetings, you talk a lot about what global leadership looks like. You have in your entire leadership booklet that you have, and you go and you fill out and you do these exercises to kind of highlight specific aspects of leadership that you should have as a global leader. There are also a lot of simulations used in the leadership group meetings, and one of them is you all play a role of like a different company, or you all played like a different role. And for example, when I did it, I was the CEO of Coca-Cola, because Coca-Cola is a massive force in the global organizations and peacekeeping and things like that. And so you have to all try and solve this one problem that's happening, and you have to try and come together and solve a problem, and each person has different things that they're supposed to do to kind of either make the game or the simulation a little bit more difficult and things like that. So that was also, that was a really fun way to learn about cooperation and different cultures interacting on a global scale about different issues that may happen as well. So, is it cold? So, sorry. I went in the summertime, so it was not cold. It was actually quite warm, but as always, the weather changes. So I would definitely recommend looking at the weather leading up to your date that you're going to go on your trip, and that'll definitely help you figure out what things to pack. Some days it'll be rainy, which kind of makes it a little bit colder, but overall it was pretty warm while I was there because it was over the summer. So what political figures are we exposed to? So instead of meeting directly with a lot of political figures, it's more of a meeting directly with people who work in global organizations or international organizations. I mentioned Dr. Mohammed Masic earlier, who has spoken to the UN and addressed specific human rights issues. I spoke a little bit earlier about the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and I got to talk to their outreach program, or their outreach person who spoke to us and talked to us a lot about that. We got to go to the Vienna Town Hall and speak to somebody who worked for the local government in Vienna about what their experience was working with international issues and things like that. So it's not like you're talking to the president of Germany or anything like that. We're not talking to Chancellor Merkel or anything, but you're talking to people who have worked with leaders who are very high quality and who have worked directly with international leadership skills. Was it hard for me being away from home? I actually am a military brat. I have grown up with military parents basically my whole life. So we've traveled around a lot, and sometimes they've gone out of state or out of the country while I've still been home. So the hardest part wasn't really being away from home for me, because I tend to find my home with my family. But there were some nights when I really, really missed my family, and I missed the people and all my friends back home. Luckily, a lot of the hotels offered Wi-Fi, so I was able to like FaceTime my family while I was there, and I got to tell them all about what I was doing. And I got to, you can use on iPhones, you can use iMessage and text other iPhones using Wi-Fi, so that also helped me talk to one of my best friends while I was on the trip. And so it wasn't really too hard because there were lots of opportunities for me to stay in touch with the people who I had at home. Next question, was the first night easy? The first few days are a little hard because you're having such a shift in time zones. For me, it was a 6-hour difference from my usual time zone. So jet lag will catch up to you really quickly, and then you get used to it. And so that's really nice. So the first night I was very exhausted anyway, so I slept completely through it. But the next night I woke up at like 2 in the morning because for me it was like, 10 p.m. at home. So it was a little difficult in the first few nights, but it gets a lot easier throughout the entire trip. And I wasn't too homesick a lot, as I kind of answered with the last one. I got to talk to my family a lot while I was there. Okay, we have another question about the cultural item for somebody from Argentina. Ooh, that's really cool. I've never been to Argentina or met, nobody in my small group was from Argentina, actually. You could take a piece of, if you have traditional clothing, like historical clothing or something like that that you have that your grandmother wore. If you have, if they have like little candies, you can just bring candy and people will be so excited with that. If you want to bring like a recording of your favorite Argentinian song, and you can just play that, that would also be really cool, and that would expose people to something about your culture. It's really up to you. Whatever you feel like you can talk about for a while and kind of talk about your home and what's exciting about it. It's really up to you. But those are a few ideas that you can have. But people will just be so receptive to whatever you bring because, like, if they're like me, they've never been to Argentina or they don't know anybody from Argentina. So anything that you bring will be really cool for them. Okay, all caught up with questions again. If anybody needs to ask any more questions, feel free. I actually got to meet a lot of people from the United States while I was there, so that was cool. Okay, yay, next question, so I don't have to think of anything else to say. So the next question is, are we free to experience the city on our own time? Not meaning the whole day, but just walk around in the areas. So you're going to have a few parts of the day where they're going to be like, okay, you have 30, 45 minutes for lunch. Feel free to go out and get your lunch. So that's up to you. You can go get lunch. You can go shopping. You can go look around the area. They just ask that you stay close and not get too far away so that you can be back to where you need to meet up. So you do get a little bit of free time. You don't get to like go off like in the middle of the night and do anything, but you do have time to explore the city sometimes, and you're going to cover a lot of the city in a lot of the led tours. So the next question is kind of similar. Did you guys have any free time in the duration of the trip while you guys are out, or even just to socialize with everyone? You definitely have plenty of time to socialize with people, whether it's during meals that you have, or at the end of the trip, there's a little like dance and dinner that they hold for you for all the people who are involved on the trip, and so that's a ton of fun, and you get to socialize. But you have lots of time to socialize and talk to people, and when you're on the bus to dip between different locations, that's also a really great time to talk to people and get to know people. Okay, if there are any last second questions, feel free to send them. That is really all I have for you. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to contact Envision. They'll be sure to answer your questions. There's lots of information on their website that has a lot of the personal experience with it. Feel free to go and check out my alumni profile, and I wish you guys the best of luck on your trip. I'll wait a couple more minutes here to see if there are any last minute questions, but otherwise, I really hope that this was informative enough for you guys, and I hope that I was able to give you kind of the experience of what it is to go on this trip as a student. It's a really, really amazing program, and I highly recommend, if you're still on the fence on whether or not you want to do it, I would say go for it. I would tell anybody to go for it. I promise I'm not being paid to say this or anything, but I really, really loved the trip, and it was a life-changing experience. So we have one last question. How do you dress for the dance or the last night? So you can, it's business formal, so you have to be appropriate. Like, you don't want to like show a lot of skin or anything like that, but you dress up and you look nice. Like, I got ready for the dance with some of the girls from my small group, and we all met in one person's hotel room, and we all put on our dresses, and then we like helped each other with makeup, and it was just, you look nice, and it's just a nice little dinner, and you have a dance, and it's so much fun, and it's just a time for you to kind of like get nicely made up and have just fun with the people that you've met. And this question, are you still in touch with the friends that you've made? And yes, I am. I actually had one of my friends from Shanghai come and visit me in Washington, D.C. this year. We went out and got lunch, and we talked about how we've been since the trip. I personally haven't traveled out of country to go and visit anyone, but I know one girl from the United States, another girl from our small group in Cape Town, South Africa. She's gone like 2 or 3 times now, and she really loves it there, and is actually, her goal is to move to Cape Town, and so that's really cool. It's very easy to stay in contact with the people that you meet on the trip because they're such good people. And you do, I kind of touched on the free time a little bit earlier, but you have free time when you go out to get lunch and things like that. You don't get to go out in the middle of the night and go explore the city at like 2 o'clock in the morning, but you do have free time to look around. And a lot of the places that you're going to want to go see, they will cover with the tours of the city that they do. So. Okay. If there are no questions, I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really loved sharing my experience. Again, feel free to check out the profile on Envision's website. You can contact them if you have any more questions. Oh, one more. Are you always on the same small group, or do you mix up throughout the trip? You are with the same small group the entire trip. You change roommates for each city, but your small group will stay with you the whole time. That way you have some kind of common core of experience, and you don't have to backtrack and relearn something if like that happens. And you travel with your small group. So that's also really exciting. So I am going to end it, mostly because I was irresponsible and my computer is dying, which is why my video is lagging a little bit. If you have any questions, you guys can find me on Facebook probably. Feel free to message me and ask me any questions. There's also tons of information on Envision's website. And I hope that this helped you out a little bit. And I hope that you guys have a great time on your trip and that you have as memorable of an experience as I did. So thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great summer.